Millionaire's disabled daughter sinking in pool. Only the black janitor's son jumps in to save her. Ethan Alvarez never lived a life of luxury, but his world was built on honesty, quiet strength, and the unwavering love of his mother, Lucia. Their small home sat on the edge of a working-class neighborhood just outside San Diego, walls patched by hand, paint fading in corners, but filled with laughter and the scent of Lucia's home-cooked meals. For 12 years, Lucia had worked as a cleaning lady at the sprawling Belmont estate, scrubbing marble floors that reflected a life she could never afford. Every morning, she would tie her hair into a bun, put on her faded uniform, and whisper a promise to Ethan. "We may not have much, but we have pride." At 17, Ethan was the kind of boy who rarely drew attention to himself. He fixed broken radios, repaired old laptops, and studied late into the night under the dim light of a second-hand lamp. While other kids talked about parties and cars, Ethan talked about codes and circuits, things that didn't cost money but could change his future. Teachers admired his brilliance, but even brilliance couldn't erase the way people looked at him. To them, he was the janitor's kid, the one who didn't belong among the children of the elite who studied at the same private academy through his scholarship. Every day, Ethan walked through those school gates aware of invisible lines. Lines drawn by class, by color, by name. Yet he never complained. He learned to carry silence like armor, to respond with kindness when others gave him judgment. If you are enjoying this story, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share a word of love in the comments. The Belmont estate, where his mother worked, stood like a monument of excess. Glass walls overlooking the Pacific, gardens manicured to perfection, and an infinity pool that seemed to stretch into the horizon. It was owned by Gregory Belmont, a man whose fortune came from Belmont Industries, a corporation praised in the media for innovation and philanthropy. But behind the polished smile and magazine covers was a man who measured worth by wealth, and people by their usefulness. Lucia, always respectful, knew how to stay invisible. Cleaning quietly, moving quickly, never speaking unless spoken to. Ethan would sometimes visit her after school, helping with small chores or repairing broken appliances around the staff quarters. Over time, he met Ava Belmont, Gregory's 15-year-old daughter. Ava was different, bright, soft-spoken, and kind in a world that often wasn't. She had cerebral palsy and moved through life with quiet courage, using her adaptive chair to swim, read, and explore the world her father tried to shelter her from. While others pitied her, Ethan never did. He treated her like a friend, someone who could laugh, argue, and dream just like anyone else. They bonded over books, technology, and the ocean view she loved to describe. Whenever Ethan helped Lucia near the pool area, Ava would wave, her eyes lighting up with the innocence of someone who saw the world as it should be, not as it was. But not everyone approved. Gregory Belmont despised the idea of staff mixing with his family. To him, people like Lucia and Ethan existed to serve, not to be seen. His rules were strict. Staff were not to linger near guests, and their families were never to enter the main guest areas. Ethan knew this, but Ava never cared. She often told her nurses, "Ethan's my friend, not the help," words that would later echo in ways she never imagined. The tension between privilege and humility always lingered in the background, invisible but heavy. Ethan would watch from the staff gate as luxury cars rolled into the estate, bringing guests who never glanced at the workers holding the doors open for them. He wondered what it must feel like to live in a world where your name could erase every boundary. That world would soon collide with his. One bright Saturday afternoon, the Belmont estate came alive with celebration. Gregory had organized an exclusive poolside party, a gathering of San Diego's elite investors, politicians, and business figures. Over 40 guests filled the backyard, laughter echoing across the crystal blue water. Waiters in white uniforms carried trays of champagne and hors d'oeuvres, while photographers snapped candid smiles for society magazines. Lucia was among the staff, ensuring everything ran smoothly. She'd worked extra hours all week to prepare the estate for the event. Her hands blistered from polishing marble tiles. Ethan, though not officially allowed, had come along to help carry supplies. He stayed behind the scenes, out of sight, quietly proud to assist his mother. At the far end of the pool, Ava sat in her adaptive water chair, smiling shyly as her nurse adjusted the controls. Swimming was her favorite therapy, the only place she felt free. The sunlight glimmered off the water, and for a moment, everything seemed perfect. But beneath that perfection, tension brewed, the kind that no one notices until it's too late. Ethan could feel it in the way Gregory's eyes followed him, in the murmurs of guests whispering about staff families overstaying their welcome. It was the same unease he'd felt his whole life, the reminder that, no matter how kind or capable, there were always people ready to remind him of his place. That afternoon, as music played and laughter filled the air, something would happen that no one could predict. Something that would test courage, reveal cruelty, and change the course of every life at the Belmont estate. In a world where power decides who matters, a single act of bravery from someone beneath the system was about to expose just how fragile privilege truly is. The afternoon sun shimmered on the surface of the Belmont's infinity pool, turning the water into a mirror of gold and blue. Laughter rippled through the air, champagne glasses clinked, and the scent of grilled seafood drifted from the patio. It was the kind of afternoon that felt untouchable, the kind of luxury that made people forget reality. But in the corner of that perfect picture, Ethan Alvarez stood quietly near the staff area, his hands tucked in his pockets, watching his mother rush between tables with practiced grace. He had promised to stay out of sight, yet his gaze kept drifting toward the pool. Ava Belmont was there, smiling, her laughter soft and genuine as she floated in her adaptive water chair, a special device designed to keep her steady while she moved her arms in slow, determined motions. Ethan always admired her resilience. Despite the limitations of cerebral palsy, she carried herself with more strength than most adults he'd met. But even from where he stood, something about the chair's motion seemed off, the faint clicking sound, the uneven sway. He frowned. No one else noticed. Music was playing, guests were busy taking pictures, and Gregory Belmont, Ava's father, was deep in conversation with a group of investors near the bar. Then it happened. The soft clicking became a grinding noise. The chair tilted slightly to one side. Ava's smile faded. A brief flicker of confusion crossed her face. Then panic. In a matter of seconds, her head slipped below the waterline. The chair didn't stop moving. The mechanical fault caused it to jerk violently, trapping her arm beneath the safety strap. The bubbles rising from her mouth were small and desperate. No one reacted. The laughter continued. Some guests looked over but assumed it was just part of her therapy. Others froze, unsure if they were even allowed to intervene. Seconds stretched into eternity. And that's when Ethan moved. He dropped the tray he was carrying and sprinted across the marble deck. His shoes squeaked against the slick surface as shocked faces turned toward him. He didn't think, he just dove. The cold water swallowed him whole. He reached Ava in seconds, unbuckling the jam strap, pulling her up with one arm, and kicking hard toward the surface. When they broke through the water, Ava gasped, coughing, trembling, but alive. Ethan cradled her gently, keeping her head above water. The crowd finally began to react. Screams, gasps, the sound of feet scrambling. Someone shouted for help. But before anyone could thank him, before anyone could even process what had just happened, a furious voice thundered through the chaos. "What are you doing here?" Gregory Belmont's face was red with rage. He stormed toward the pool, ignoring his daughter's tears, ignoring the panic. His focus was on Ethan, the soaked teenager still holding Ava in his arms. "You don't belong in this area. This is for guests, not staff and certainly not their children." The crowd fell silent. Even the music stopped. Ethan froze, water dripping from his hair, his shirt clinging to his skin. He didn't speak. There were no words that could make sense of what was happening. Ava tried to say something, but her father silenced her with a sharp gesture. "Get away from her," he barked. Ethan gently set Ava on the pool's edge as nurses rushed in. He took a step back, his heart pounding, not from fear but disbelief. In that moment, he realized the truth, that in Gregory's eyes, his act of courage meant nothing. His skin, his background, and his mother's job erased every ounce of humanity he had just shown. The whispers began almost immediately. Guests murmured words like inappropriate, unprofessional, and boundaries. No one mentioned bravery. By nightfall, Lucia was summoned to Gregory's office. His words were cold and final. Her services were no longer needed. She and her son were to leave the staff quarters by morning. He threatened legal action if they returned or tried to stir up drama. Lucia stood there, silent, tears burning behind her eyes. Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder. "It's okay, Mom," he whispered, but inside something hardened. They packed their few belongings that night, clothes, books, a few family photos. As they drove away, the mansion's lights faded in the rearview mirror like stars swallowed by darkness. For Ethan, that night changed everything. At school, he tried to focus, but the humiliation lingered. Whispers followed him down hallways. "That's the janitor's kid who got fired for trespassing," some sneered. Yet through the noise, Ethan stayed quiet, because silence was easier than anger. But silence can be dangerous when the truth is buried beneath lies. One afternoon, as he repaired an old laptop in his room, he thought about Ava. He knew she didn't deserve to be trapped in her father's world, a world built on cruelty disguised as class. He missed their conversations about science and dreams, and he knew Gregory Belmont's empire was far from clean. Curiosity turned into purpose. He started researching Belmont Industries, digging through public records and corporate filings. What began as a distraction became an obsession. The deeper he looked, the more strange patterns appeared. Shell companies, hidden transactions, fake invoices. It didn't add up. And one night, as rain battered the windows of their small rented home, Ethan realized he had stumbled upon something dangerous. The millionaire who had shamed his mother, who had treated them like dirt, was living behind a fortress of fraud. He wasn't just going to sit quietly anymore, because sometimes the people with nothing left to lose are the ones who uncover everything others try to hide. And as the storm outside raged, Ethan powered up his old, cracked laptop, unaware that his next discovery would not only destroy Gregory Belmont's empire, but rewrite his own destiny forever. The nights that followed were long and heavy, lit only by the pale glow of Ethan's cracked laptop. While the city slept, he dug deeper into the shadows of Gregory Belmont's empire, tracing corporate filings, offshore accounts, and tax reports that didn't make sense. At first, it felt impossible. Belmont Industries was untouchable, a fortress of polished PR and political connections. But Ethan had something Gregory didn't: patience, purpose, and a hunger for truth. He worked silently, typing through the hum of a flickering bulb, piecing together data that no journalist or investigator had ever dared to connect. His small bedroom became a war room of evidence. Printed documents taped to the wall, notes scribbled in pen, strings connecting one company name to another. What started as curiosity had turned into a full-blown investigation. Lucia worried. "Ethan, you're fighting a man who could destroy us," she whispered one night. But he just nodded quietly. He wasn't doing this for revenge anymore. He was doing it because truth had to mean something, even if it came from someone who cleaned up after the rich. A week later, a new name entered the story: Professor Elaine Roberts. She taught business ethics at Ethan's school, a woman with sharp eyes and a sharper mind. She noticed Ethan's unusual questions about shell companies and false invoicing. One afternoon, she asked to see his notes. When she did, her face turned pale. "Ethan, these are criminal violations." You've uncovered corporate fraud. For the first time, someone believed him. Elaine introduced him to Daniel Reed, a civil rights attorney who had taken on powerful corporations before. Daniel looked over Ethan's files, shaking his head in disbelief. You've done in days what federal auditors can't do in months. But Daniel also warned him. If Gregory finds out what you're doing, he'll come after you hard. Ethan's answer was simple. Then he'll have to find me first. By now, Gregory Belmont was celebrating another success, a massive new government contract. His face appeared on news broadcasts, smiling as if his world was untouchable. He didn't know that Ethan had quietly infiltrated his estate's security network weeks ago, slipping in through an outdated system protocol used by the staff. From there, Ethan gained access to live camera feeds, files, and even encrypted emails. Then, one night, Ava appeared on one of those feeds. Sitting quietly in her room, her phone gone, a nurse monitoring her every move. She looked trapped, isolated, like a bird in a golden cage. But something changed when her new nurse, Maria, slipped Ethan a message through an old email account. Ava wants to help, it read. Through Maria's help, Ava sent Ethan crucial information. Her father kept hard drives and documents locked in a safe beneath the estate. In a hidden basement office no one was allowed to enter. Those drives, she said, contained recordings, contracts, and payments Gregory used to fund his illegal operations. For days, Ethan pieced everything together, the fake invoices, the bribery trails, the bank transactions that linked Gregory Belmont to corrupt officials. Each file brought him closer to the truth and closer to danger. Then came the breaking point. Gregory's internal systems detected unusual activity. Someone inside the network was copying restricted files. His security team traced the breach to the staff quarters, long since vacated by Lucia Alvarez. He knew. That night, a black car parked outside Ethan's small rented home. He peeked through the blinds. Two men in suits, standing silently. His heart raced. He grabbed the USB drives and shoved them into his backpack. Lucia tried to stop him, but he met her gaze. I have to finish this. He ran into the night, rain slashing against the pavement, thunder echoing through the hills. Every step felt like a war drum. Behind him, headlights cut through the darkness. He reached his school, empty, silent, and raced to the computer lab. He plugged in his drive, uploaded every file to an encrypted cloud, and sent it to Daniel Reed with one message. It's done. Then, heart still pounding, he sent one more email, this time directly to Gregory Belmont. Mr. Belmont, your criminal activities, including fraud, bribery, and abuse of power, are fully documented. Your assets have been frozen. The evidence is with the FBI. Sincerely, the boy you underestimated. The moment he hit send, lightning flashed outside, illuminating the rain-soaked windows. It was over, or so he thought. By morning, chaos erupted. News alerts flooded every major network. Belmont Industries under federal investigation. CO Gregory Belmont accused of fraud and bribery. Helicopters hovered over the mansion as federal agents swarmed the property. Cameras captured Gregory being led away in handcuffs, shouting, "This is a mistake. You'll regret this." But deep down, he already knew who had done it. Across the city, Ethan sat beside his mother, watching the broadcast in stunned silence. Lucia's hands trembled as she whispered, "You did it, Mijo. You really did it." Ava, now under protective care, watched too, tears streaming down her face. For the first time, she felt free. As reporters replayed footage of the arrest, the world began to see what Ethan had known all along. That power can hide corruption, but it can't erase truth. And yet, amid the chaos and victory, Ethan felt something unexpected. Not triumph, but peace. The kind that comes when you finally confront the storm that's been chasing you your whole life. But little did he know, this was only the beginning of the reckoning. Because when a system built on privilege begins to crumble, it doesn't go down quietly. And for Ethan Alvarez, the janitor's son who exposed a millionaire. The world was about to learn just how powerful truth can be when spoken by those they refused to see. In the days that followed the arrest, the Belmont estate, once a symbol of untouchable wealth, stood silent. Reporters gathered outside its iron gates, their voices echoing through the same halls where laughter once covered arrogance. Every headline carried Gregory Belmont's name, not as a hero of industry, but as a man brought down by greed, corruption, and the very people he believed were beneath him. The truth spread like wildfire. Federal agents froze his accounts, seized his properties, and dismantled the empire he had built on lies. Executives resigned overnight. Partners vanished. His company's name, once plastered on charity galas and business conferences, became a cautionary tale in every news cycle. But for Ethan Alvarez, the boy who had lived in the shadows of that mansion, it wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about redemption, not just for his mother, but for every person who had ever been told they didn't belong. Lucia watched from their small living room, tears streaming down her face as the news anchors called Ethan a teenage whistleblower, and the mind behind the Belmont files. Her son, the same boy who used to fix broken radios and old computers, had just shaken the foundation of power with nothing but truth and courage. Ava, now free from her father's control, spoke publicly for the first time. Her voice was soft but resolute. She shared how Ethan had saved her life, not just from drowning, but from being silenced. She revealed how he had always treated her with kindness and respect, never pity, never superiority. Her words struck something deep in people's hearts. For the first time, the world saw the full story, a tale of friendship beyond race, beyond class, and the courage to act when no one else would. Gregory Belmont's downfall didn't just destroy a company. It exposed a system, one where power often hides behind charity and prejudice hides behind professionalism. Reporters uncovered that Belmont had underpaid his minority workers, used shell charities to launder funds, and even bribed officials to suppress labor complaints. The illusion of his success had been built on exploitation. And suddenly, Ethan's act wasn't just personal, it was historical. Harvard, MIT, and Stanford sent him full scholarship offers within weeks. Civil rights organizations praised him as a symbol of integrity. Journalists called his discovery the Alvarez effect, proof that truth, when spoken by the marginalized, can't be ignored forever. But Ethan never boasted. He stayed grounded, often saying, "I didn't take down a millionaire. I just showed the world who he really was." Lucia, too, found a new purpose. She started her own cleaning agency, one that offered fair pay, education benefits, and dignity to every worker. Women who had once been invisible found strength in her leadership. The same hands that once scrubbed marble floors were now signing business contracts in her own name. Ava, after months of recovery, began advocating for disability rights and equality in workplaces. She used her father's wealth, now confiscated by the state, to fund accessibility programs for underprivileged students. Every speech she gave began with the same line: "Being underestimated is not a weakness. Sometimes, it's your greatest advantage." Ethan often visited her on weekends, their friendship stronger than ever. Together, they transformed pain into progress, proof that even from the ruins of injustice, something good could rise. 3 years later, at Harvard's graduation ceremony, the auditorium was filled. Cameras rolled as Ethan Alvarez, now a double major in computer science and digital law, stepped onto the stage. The audience rose to their feet, clapping, cheering, and some even crying. He paused before the microphone, scanning the crowd. Professors, students, his mother, and in the front row, Ava in her wheelchair, smiling proudly. Ethan took a breath and spoke with the same calm strength that had carried him through every storm. "Gregory Belmont once told me I didn't know my place," he said. "He was right, because my place isn't defined by money, color, or the job my mother had to take. My place is wherever justice needs a voice. The applause that followed lasted 5 minutes straight. That night, his speech went viral. Millions watched, shared, and commented. It wasn't just about a boy who fought corruption. It was about every person who'd ever been silenced by power, every worker dismissed by wealth, every act of quiet bravery that went unseen. Ethan's story became more than news, it became a mirror. A reminder that racism doesn't always scream. Sometimes, it whispers through privilege, through opportunity denied, through boundaries no one questions until someone dares to cross them. And sometimes, all it takes is one person, one quiet, relentless person, to prove that the world doesn't change through anger or status, but through courage and truth. Because heroes don't always wear suits or carry wealth. Sometimes, they wear hand-me-down clothes, carry a mother's hope, and fight battles no one else can see. So, as the screen fades and Ethan's story closes, ask yourself, in a world that tells some people to stay in their place, would you have jumped in, too? If this story moved you, if Ethan's courage, Lucia's strength, and Ava's transformation reminded you that humanity still shines through injustice, then take a moment to share this video. Stories like this deserve to be heard. Hit the like button to help it reach more people, and subscribe to our channel *** for more powerful, real-life stories that open hearts and challenge minds. *** because somewhere out there, someone needs to be reminded that doing what's right, even when you stand alone, can still change everything.